Hi readers, welcome. It's Kim, the lifelong reader, and I'd like to catch you up on the books that I currently have on the go and books that I've recently finished. Right now I have just two books on the go, and the first one is going to be John Irving, The Cider House Rules, and I picked this up for the month of November to read along with the group that's reading this here on BookTube, and of course I'm still woefully behind the group, but that's okay. Once I get it finished, I am going to log back into Voxer and I will catch up on all of the readers' chats that were going on in my absence. I am enjoying this. I love John Irving's writing style. I think I mentioned that in my previous video. He never disappoints, but I will tell you, based on Book Chat with Pat's recommendation, I think the next Irving that I'm going to pick up is A Prayer for Owen Meany. And I do happen to have two different copies. I have a hardback and a softback, so I will probably put that book as my next Irving pickup. And the other read that I currently have going on is a buddy read with Ted at Speculative Bookshelf, and that is Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre. And you guys know I love Jane Eyre. I sat down with this last night and, like a kid in a candy store, a grin ear to ear, and I had my little notebook and my little pencil, and I was trying to find things that I haven't found before. Themes maybe, or quotes, or things that really stick out to me on this read through. And I have a couple notes written down. So far, one of the things that really stuck out to me, and I'm not too far into the novel, I'm probably around chapter 10, is how books played a role in young Jane's life. And of course, as a reader, I always think that is really cool. So I'm going to be focusing on that little nugget and trying to see what I can pull out of the book this time as it relates to books and reading in the life of Jane Eyre. So Ted and I are reading one book of this a week. There are 3 books in Jane Eyre, and then we're just chatting about it over email. And hopefully Ted likes this. Ted likes weird stories. He is a speculative fiction weird story buff, and I think Jane Eyre fits into weird stories. There are a lot of aspects of Jane Eyre that are kind of weird, so I'm thinking he'll like that. And I've made recommendations to him before that have worked out well, so I'm hoping we find the same thing as we go through our buddy read here with Jane Eyre. So those are the 2 books that I currently have reading. I don't have an audiobook going because I do have an audio version of Jane Eyre. So last night when I sat down to read after work, I had my paper copy here, and then today after work when I was cooking dinner, I was listening to my audio version, and I plan on flipping back and forth as I go through this novel. And for that reason, I don't have any other audio going. I have finished the other audio I was listening to. So I can tell you about that as one of my finished reads. Now that was the audio of Saving CeeCee Honeycutt, and this is a reread for me. I have read this print book before and thoroughly enjoyed the reading experience. And I saw the audio version on my library app last week and decided to go ahead and take that out as a loan and listen to it. And overall, I really did enjoy the experience. I mentioned last week that I was a little thrown because the narrator is a young girl, and I'm not sure how old she was when she narrated this, but she fit the role of CeeCee, the main protagonist, very well, because CeeCee is a 12-year-old girl in this book. But she also voices all of the adult characters, and this novel takes place in Savannah, Georgia for part of the time, for most of the time, and there are a lot of Southern Belle type characters and older men that she's voicing, and I don't know, something about that just didn't work well for me, and it stuck with me through the whole narration, the whole book. I did enjoy the reread. But I would recommend this in print. I would recommend that you read it and not necessarily listen to it if you are interested in it. Now, this is a very sweet story written by Beth Hoffman. I've read both of Beth's books. They are both very good. And in this story, we meet a young girl who is pretty much acting as a primary caregiver for her mom, who is dealing with a mental illness when the story opens. And her father is an older man. He is not really involved in CeeCee's life because he travels for work. He's coming home less and less often because of the issues that her mom is having. And her mom is fixated on her days when she was a younger woman and she was in pageants in Georgia. And they're living in Willoughby, Ohio, so there are no pageants going on in Ohio at that time. And apparently she was the 1951 Miss Vidalia Queen, and she is fixated on those days. So she spends a lot of time in pageant dresses and talking with CeeCee about pageants and wishing for her days in the South when she herself was a Southern belle. About 90 minutes into the audiobook, there is an accident and her mom does pass away. And that's where the story diverges, and she goes to Savannah, Georgia from Ohio to live with her great Aunt Tootie. And this is really where her world opens up. For the first time, she is feeling sad about her mom and sad about her dad, of course, because she feels abandoned a little bit by both of them. But she has her Aunt Tootie, who is very attentive to her. But more importantly, she has her mom's cook that has been cooking with her for a long time, and her name is Oletta Jones. And I would have to say that Oletta Jones really becomes CeeCee's first friend. When she was in Ohio, she had an elderly neighbor that was also very, very close with her, and she was a friend. But once CeeCee moves to Savannah, Oletta is really her first friend. And it's very nice. Oletta is an older Black woman, and of course, CeeCee is a young white girl. But they really do spark a connection, and it is such a sweet relationship. So this book, while it's lighthearted, does deal with some heavy themes. So you have the mental illness, you have visual and audible effects of racism that CeeCee overhears, and it really affects her because Oletta is very important to her and she doesn't understand what's happening. This novel takes place back in the 60s. So CeeCee is talking about Martin Luther King Jr. and different things that were happening during those times. So it has a lot of heavy themes, but it is truly a beautiful story. We actually get to see CeeCee get to know her neighbors, and of course they are all very colorful Southern belles. We get to see her settle in Savannah and eventually go to school, and it's a very, very touching story. So if you like lighthearted reads, there is a lot of humor in this book, and there are a lot of touching moments. I don't think I teared up at all, maybe once or twice. You guys know me. I'm gonna say again, I'm a weepy reader. But if you're interested in a lighthearted story that has some deeper themes, I think you might like Beth Hoffman. Her other book was amazing too. If you love old things, old furniture, old homes, that's another theme in this book. They are saving some homes in Savannah instead of letting them get torn down. So different scenes like that are really, really fun to read through. And the other book I finished was Theo of Golden, and this was one that was recommended on my 60 Days on BookTube viewer TBR, and I was very excited for this book because it came very highly praised, and I would say that I did enjoy it. So in this book, we are following a 86-year-old man that we only know by his first name, which is Theo, and he travels by luxury all the way down from New York to a small town in Georgia named Golden, Georgia. And we're not quite sure what his mission is, but we know that he does have some sort of mystery mission. He has a goal that he wants to fulfill while he is in Golden. So he quickly settles in and starts to get to know the community there. And one of the ways he does that is by going into the coffee shop. he sees these beautiful pencil-drawn portraits of community members on the walls, and he starts to buy them one by one and bestows this portraiture to its subject. So he meets with the person in the community park there, right by a fountain, kind of gets to know them a little bit, hears a little bit about their story, a little bit about how they're connected to the community in Golden, and then he gives them his impression of them based on what he saw in their pencil-drawn portrait. So these meetings are usually quite touching. They were definitely entertaining to read, and I did enjoy that aspect of the novel for sure. So we have some really interesting characters. Number one, I really liked Theo. He's a very easy to like kind of guy. He's upbeat, he's philosophical, he's spiritual, and he's nearing the end of his life, he suspects. So he does a lot of reflection across the years. There are some bittersweet moments in that for sure, but on the whole, this is a lighthearted book. So nothing that's going to really bring you down too much. There are some other really interesting characters in the community. The standouts for me were Tony, and Tony is a Vietnam vet, and he runs the bookstore in Golden. And he, of course, has his own demons, and he spends a lot of time on the stoop of the bookstore, teasing with his customers or having fun with this group of guys, guy friends that he has. So he plays off things with a lot of humor, but he does deal with his own demons from the war. And then another person that stuck out to me was a homeless woman named Helen. And Helen is extremely in touch with nature, and surprisingly, she critiques Theo's grammar every chance she gets. So there are some really touching characters in the novel. There is also, as I mentioned, some spirituality. So there is a lot of references to Christianity, which was completely fine with me, and it seemed very well to fit in the novel. But you should know that if you're thinking about reading it, you have to make sure that you're comfortable with those aspects. And when I finished the book, it does have a bit of a mystery through the whole story, because you're wondering what his mission is. When I finished the book and I looked back on the story as a whole, I really felt like if it was missing one thing, it was missing conflict. There really are, the characters have their issues, and Theo gets to know those issues and sometimes helps them with those issues, which can be very touching. But there are very few true obstacles to what Theo's goal is in Golden. So for me, I found that lacking just a little bit. But the writing was very good. It's descriptive, yet it's not overly so it is accessible. It's not really literary fiction. It does have a plot. The story does have a plot and a purpose. So I think if you're a reader that enjoys that type of reading, you would probably like this book. Overall, it was a quite enjoyable read. I couldn't wait to pick it back up because the pacing was good. The story kept my interest for sure. I really did enjoy it. So that might sound like something good to you. I know it's a fairly popular book right now, and the author does have another title available on Kindle Unlimited. It's a memoir, and I have been thinking about picking that up as well. Hi everyone, Editing Kim here. I was putting this video together today, and I realized that last night, the longer I filmed, the more my blink rate increased. And to prevent you from sitting through that irritating and annoying spectacle, I'm just going to refilm my review of Early Autumn, A Story of a Lady by Louis Bromfield. This is a 1926 novel that I am reading for my Pulitzer project. And the novel follows a wealthy Durham, Massachusetts family, and they were some of the original settlers of New England. So they've been in this one place for a very long time. Multiple generations have lived in the main home here on the Pentland property. And within walking distance, we have Aunt Cassie and Cousin Sabine and other people that are able to just simply walk up to the main house because they live nearby. And we learn a lot about Cousin Sabine in the opening pages because she is sort of the black sheep of the family. She is 46 years old. She is recently divorced, and she's moved back to the area to present her daughter Therese to society. We're told that she sold her property on the Pentland, sort of the Pentland compound, when she moved out of state to a Irish Catholic man who worked his way up from the wharf, and he has now made some stature for himself in the community, but his name is Michael O'Hara. And Mr. O'Hara is someone that the younger generations of the Pentland family are okay with, and the older generations are leery of and untrustful of because they consider him an outsider. And when Sabine sold her property to him, it really irritated the family. And knowing what I learned about Sabine in the story, I don't think Bromfield comes right out and says it, but I believe she did that on purpose to irritate her family members and to break up a little bit of their hold on the countryside there. So after about a third of the way into the novel, the story really starts to veer away from Sabine and focus on the character of Olivia Pentland. And Olivia is Sabine's cousin by marriage. She married Sabine's cousin Anson, and she is living in the main Pentland home. And she came to the family with wealth of her own, but she's been married to Anson for a while. They have 2 children, and their daughter, who is the oldest, is presented to society at the start of the novel. So she is nearing 18 or perhaps older. And Olivia is well respected within the family because she is one of the more level-headed members. And as an outsider, we assume it's because she doesn't share the same genetics. She's not clinging to the past like some of the older members of the Pentland family seem to be doing. She is also very close with her father-in-law, John Pentland. He is the patriarch, the older family member, and they are somewhat confidants with each other because he talks to Olivia about what's going to happen with the property when he passes. He doesn't plan on leaving things to his son. He plans on leaving them to his daughter-in-law because, again, he trusts her more than he does his son. So the overarching theme of this novel is how these 3 different generations of Pentlands are looking at their lives in Durham, Massachusetts. The younger members of the family are looking towards leaving the area. They are not clinging to the old ways and the old area as the older generations are. And Olivia is smack dab in the middle of all this, so she's seeing it from both sides. The older members are reflecting on their younger years, and they're talking to her about aging and possibly dying soon. And there are people that are experiencing some health problems, some mental issues, and she's watching all of that while she's also watching her own children age and get ready to embrace life perhaps elsewhere. She's in a loveless marriage with Anson. He spends most of the novel cloistered away in his library, writing about his lineage of the Pentland family. He is researching as much as he can and creating a book about his family and the area that they settled. And we learn that a woman in Olivia's time, if she wanted a divorce from her husband, had to request it. And it could be granted or he could say no. And she really doesn't have any recourse other than leaving her family and continuing to be illegally married to her spouse. But she doesn't really have, there's no no-fault divorce at that time. So she is trapped in a marriage. Now, older women in the novel are also reflected in a way that we as the reader understand that they also had few choices in their marriage. And the way Bromfield does that is he shows us at least one woman in the story who married at a young age, realized fairly quickly, we believe, that marriage was not for her. And when it came to private time with her spouse, She feigned illness. She took to her sickbed, and that is how she gained control over her own life. And then as he aged and eventually passed, she sort of came alive in her older years, and we realized that that was her way of gaining some type of control over her own life as a woman back in those times. So really, Olivia is looking at life through the older lens, the younger lens, and her own lens. And she starts to question whether duty to family and keeping up appearances is more important to her than seeking love from, seeking a respite from this loveless marriage that she has found herself in. And this is the decision that she struggles with. There is also a bit of a mystery to this story. There is a family member who has always been feeble-minded, and that family member starts to drop clues about something that Olivia eventually does find, and it gives her information about the Pentland family that she's not sure anybody else is aware of, and she knows that it would crush certain people in the family. So she has to decide what to do with that information, which also is an interesting aspect of the novel. So we see her grappling with all of these things, and she's working her way to her own decision, kind of feeling out Anson to see what are my options with you as far as what you're willing to allow in my life. And we also see her forming a friendship with Mr. O'Hara, and contact with this outsider from the family also opens her eyes to different ways that her life could be played out. She is about to turn 40 in this novel, so this is a huge time in her life, and that is really what this novel revolves around. I really did enjoy this reading experience. I mentioned in my last video that I had approached the first third of this book rather slowly because I had other things that I was reading that was more important. But after I got about a third of the way in, I was really enchanted by the characters, and I decided to push full steam ahead on this read, and I'm glad I did. Bromfield has a beautiful writing style. This is literary fiction. There are some plotted parts, especially related to the mystery and related to the characters' desires somewhat, what they're looking for. So we do have a bit of plotting going on. But overall, this is literary fiction, and I really did enjoy it. Bromfield is someone that I did not expect to read other than he's on the Pulitzer list, but he is someone that I would pick up and read again. So hopefully that helps you decide if you would be interested in reading this book. Now again, this book was published in 1926, and I love old things. I'm enamored with antiques and old homes, and this novel talks about the servants and how the servants go out in the evening, and on the sides of the road you can see the servants from the different homes that are gathering outside to tell family secrets, to talk about their mistress and maybe how often she bathes during the week and different things like that. And I found that really interesting, just to think about that little society going on outside of these homes in the evenings and on the weekends after dark. I found that really cool. So if you like stories about older homes, older families, stories where the people still sit in the drawing room after dinner and there are still servants, you may be interested in picking up this book. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm wondering what you're reading this week, and I would love for you to tell me about it in the comment section. If you're not really willing to tell me and you're feeling shy, just leave me an emoji. The stack of books emoji is my favorite, but a smiley face will do just the same. So I hope you have a great week. Until I see you again, I wish you nothing less than happy reading.